to launch another anti-missile site, and in their speeches at the event they made a
defense. But the US pushing its nuclear potential to the very edge, and that edge is Eastern Europe. Now, after the deployment of these AMD elements, we'll have to think of ways to dilute the threat they could pose to the Russian Federation.
Claude Venust, a former deputy speaker in the Belgian Parliament, thinks that Russia's concerns are entirely justified.
This is part of a long-standing policy of NATO and the US to isolate Russia ever since the end of the Cold War, the end of the First Cold War, I might now say. I mean, these weapon systems are developed, designed, conceptualized 20 years easily before they even install. The thing is that since the end of the Cold War, one of the big fears of the United States, the people that are in power there, is that Europe might realign its priorities. And the reason why the US is so adamant in installing this is to keep Europe aligned with its transatlantic alliance against Russia. It is nothing else.
Meanwhile, the ship you can see behind me at the moment is a US Navy guided missile destroyer. This week it sailed near an island claimed by Beijing in the South China Sea. It is the third time the US Navy, though, has moved near the disputed territories in less than a year. Washington claims there's an increasing threat coming from the Chinese side. RT's Emily Sue picks up the story.
Meet China's DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missile, which has earned itself the nickname Killer Guam missile, courtesy of the Western mainstream media.
China's weapons technology is becoming an increasing threat to the U.S.
The Dongfeng 26 is known as the Guam Killer.
Designed specifically to target U.S. military assets. A new ballistic missile with the range to strike the U.S. naval base at Guam, earning it the nickname the Guam Killer.
The Killer Guam missile made headlines this week because of a U.S. congressional report warning of the threat it poses to America's strategic military base in Guam.
China's ability to strike the island is increasing. Such attacks could hold key U.S. assets stationed at Guam at risk.
But something that was drowned out by the sensational headlines was the fact that on the very same day, the U.S. Navy sent a guided missile destroyer to the South China Sea again, right next to the Fiery Cross Reef, which China claims. But it's not just Navy patrols. The U.S. repeatedly brands China as a military threat, even though Washington spends 4 times as much as Beijing on defense. Meanwhile, in the South China Sea, the U.S. either already has or is developing military ties with almost all the countries with maritime claims there. And let's not forget, Japan and South Korea are also America's allies. With China effectively surrounded by pro-U.S. forces, who's the real threat here?
It's clear and obvious that the United States is not only a threat to Chinese national security, the United States is a threat to international peace and security. We all know that the United States is involved in an encircling strategy of China. That is why President Barack Obama is going to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, contrary to what his predecessors have done.
Perhaps the lesson to be learned is not to judge a book by its cover or a news story by its headline. Emily Sue, RT, Moscow.
Now it's all about glitter and geopolitics. 26 singers are battling it out in the musical extravaganza Eurovision competition being held in Stockholm at the moment. So right now, votes are being counted at the event. Australia, unbelievably, which is a first-time participant, is currently leading. Artis Ilya has been following the colourful, glamorous and sometimes odd show from a Moscow cinema.
Some people are in love with the Eurovision Song Contest. Some people hate it. But no matter what they say, it is a massive event on the calendar. The TV audience is enormous. An estimated 80 million people, and that is more people watching than the Super Bowl, the final of the American Football League. Now, if you're not a Eurovision Song Contest fan, perhaps you'd be surprised to find out that this year Australia is taking part. So really, Eurovision is going global. And let me just ask the people behind me who they are cheering for today. Girls, hi. Who do you think will win tonight? Where's Sergei Lazarev from?
Russia!
So yes, obviously it is Sergei Lazarev. Most people here in Moscow are, of course, supporting him, the contestant for Russia. And by the way, a lot of betting companies are saying that he's one of the top favorites. But whenever you say Eurovision, someone next to you is going to say politics, and this year is not an exception. Unfortunately, we have seen some harsh headlines on Sergei Lazarev. One of them, for example, saying that it will be a disaster for the European Union of Broadcasters if Russia wins. I don't know why it's going to be a disaster, but definitely if Sergei Lazarev wins, for the crowd behind my shoulder, it's going to be the best thing that can happen to them this weekend. But we're all going to find that out after the voting counting is over.
Well, I can give you a quick update. Russia are actually fourth at the moment, with Australia currently leading. The music contest was first created as an attempt to bring together European countries, but in its 60 years of history, the show has had a few scandals too. Back in 1978, Jordanian TV cut the broadcast of the competition to a shot of flowers when it became obvious Israel was going to earn first place, and the next day they claimed that the runner-up actually won. Some countries have actually declined to host the event after winning, saying it was too expensive, and they have an argument too. In 2012, Azerbaijan splashed out a staggering $108 million on the contest, but at least some singers do make a name for themselves after Eurovision, even though not always in the music business. One Ukrainian winner got a place in Parliament. We'll keep you updated. Coming up next here in RT, Lee Camp takes a light-hearted look at the week's news in Redacted tonight. If you're watching us, though, in the UK or Ireland, it's Sputnik with George Galloway.
Most people think to stand out in this business, you need to be the first one on top of the story, or the person with the loudest voice, or the biggest ratings. In truth, to stand out in the news business, you just need to ask the right questions and demand the right answers. Question more.
لكن احنا يعني فهموا ان جسمنا مليان ميكروبات، لان الجيل بتاعنا اتولد لقى ابوه زبالين.
كان بيلم شويه، دخلت في ايده ابره هنا وسط دخلت في ايده وسط لحد هنا. ممكن تحصل لها يعني تسمم يعني ابسط حاجه.
We pay a very high invoice from our health, from our life. People are dying so young here.
نفسك تبقى ايه لما تكبر؟
لا انا عايزه ابقى دكتور واروح بلاد بره.
To make. This is pretty huge. And I'm excited because it's not often I get to make a big announcement. I think my last one was when I was about 13 years old. I had my first wet nightmare. Yeah, a zombie was chasing me and I climaxed. But anyway, today is my next announcement. I want to announce the death of the two-party system. Yes. I'm not actually kidding here. I think we are seeing the death of this corrupt, meaningless, two-party pantomime. Both the Republican and the Democratic parties are in the midst of civil wars. To start with, we're told Bernie Sanders is done, right? It's over. His rallies are just death rattles of a corpse. Well, here is the latest death rattle this week in California.
Our next president, Bernie Sanders.
Lee, who? I can't hear you over the 20,000 people. But I don't want to be biased. Hillary also had a rally in California that was just as big.
I'm sorry we can't get you all in. I really apologize.
You're not welcome here. You're responsible for the death of Bertha Castellanos. You supported the coup in Honduras.
She looks like a coach thanking everybody for coming out to the bake sale. And then they accuse the coach of causing a coup in Honduras. Which the coach totally did. The coach is like, let's, bake sale, huh? Muffins. Bernie Sanders has energized so many people partially because of that, because Hillary is more Republican than Nixon was. And I wish that were a joke, but Bernie isn't even really a Democrat. He's an independent with a Democratic streak. And on the other side, the Republican Party establishment fucking hates their nominee. I mean, Trump is an arrogant, megalomaniacal racist with no governing experience who treats everyone, including his own employees, like crap. So you would think the GOP establishment would love him. I mean, he shares all their values. But it is true that they have no power over him. He's not indebted to oil companies or pharmaceuticals or other big interests because he's largely funded his own campaign or stolen the money from veterans groups. Like I said, the GOP establishment should love him. But Trump is adored by a lot of voters who, like Donald, hate Mexican immigrants for being Muslim. And for being too lazy to get a job while they're stealing all our jobs. And the media loves him. The media loves him because he gets good ratings. But he's terrible for the media. They've lost all credibility. He's terrible for America. We've lost all credibility. But everyone seems addicted to him. We just we can't get enough. He's like chocolate mousse, all right? It's horrible for you. It has too much sugar. It's not good for you. But you can't stop eating it. Just, give me the chocolate mousse. Donald Trump is chocolate Mussolini. It is. Give me some more of that dictator. Just put it in my mouth. How much does the GOP establishment hate their own candidate? Paul Ryan won't endorse him yet. Mitt Romney said he's skipping the GOP convention. And Politico reported Hillary Clinton's supporters have started calling up top Bush family donors to try to convince them that she represents their values better than Trump. The Republican Party has spent the past year binging on chocolate Mussolini. And now they're purging. They're trying to vomit. They're trying to vomit up Donald Trump, pretending the meal never took place. But they're not the only ones purging. The Democratic Party has been busy purging voter rolls to help Hillary Clinton. There are reports of massive purges going on right now in California. And the New York Board of Elections last week certified the primary and rejected 90,000 affidavit votes in Brooklyn alone. Or maybe they began certifying it. I don't know what the f***'s going on, all right? You have to be a lawyer on that case to know what the hell is going on. And where are we going to find that at this hour, huh?
Hey, Lee, it's Jonathan Clark here from Election Justice USA. I'm one of the attorneys trying to get the hundreds of thousands of people who voted via affidavit in New York, trying to get their vote counted. Right now, we're trying to do the impossible. We're trying to get everybody who was rejected to contact us so we can bring their story into state court and hopefully get their vote counted. All right, thanks a lot, Lee. Hope this helps.
How cool was that? I can't believe I just said I needed that, and it's The only way I'll ever understand this topic is if I had a naked Swedish supermodel with the answers painted on her body.
There are certain other things.
No, I'm done with him. Anyway, it's just not the same. It was worth a try, right? Anyway, point is, we now have a system where the Republican is just a reality show corporatist and the Democrat is an oligarch Republican. Even self-proclaimed evilest man alive Charles Koch, even he said he might endorse Hillary Clinton. So this is why I would like to announce the death of the two-party system. Right? This is cause to celebrate. And I don't mean celebrate either Clinton or Trump becoming president. That is cause to move to Canada, learn French, and then still hang yourself with rusty barbed wire. No, I mean this situation is something to celebrate. We could be seeing the end of this national dementia in which we pretend that Republican or Democrat stands for anything. They are both corporate corrupt nightmares, and this is the climax. So stop defining yourself as a Democrat or Republican. Define yourself as a human who wants an end to corporate rule. So who's coming with me, huh? Who's coming with me? Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast. This is Redacted tonight. I'm your host, Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. One of the largest worker strikes in recent American history has been going on for a month now. And if you watch the corporate media, you won't hear any of that crap. I mean, in terms of newsworthiness, largest strike in recent American history ranks just below Donald Trump tweet about a taco bowl. But yeah, there are nearly 40,000 Verizon workers on strike right now, and it's a little complicated to explain why. It has to do with the fact that Verizon treats them like shit. So let me just check. Yeah, that's it. The Communication Workers of America and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers want to stop Verizon from stealing their retirement, their work security, and their ability to earn a living. It has become clear that Verizon's goal is to have very few, if any, workers that have a stable, long-term job. Because when it comes to Verizon stock, Wall Street views having well-paid, happy employees as, like, so out of style, all right? It is like not on fleek at all. It's not. It is off fleek. It is. It's like that commercial with the duck, off fleek. It is. Verizon is a company that not only makes billions of dollars every year, but has also exploited every tax loophole they can find. From 2008 to 2013, Verizon received a tax refund of $732 million, which resulted in a corporate income tax rate of -2%. Negative 2%. This is holes and doucheholes exploiting loopholes the size of black holes. That is why they're called Verizon, because when it comes to being assholes, they have crossed the event horizon. And what has Verizon's response to this massive strike been? They tweeted this image, which I'm pretty sure is a microaggression. I'm pretty sure. It's a pictograph that means Verizon is fingering their workers. You know, in medieval times, rulers would put traitors' heads on spikes as warning to others. I'm pretty sure this is the digital equivalent. All right, we now turn to Yemen. Another story here about Yemen. It's in the midst of a civil war that is more complicated than string theory and more complicated than mastering all the filters on Snapchat. I never thought I'd get an anxiety attack from trying to turn my tongue into a rainbow. But it's the world we live in. Anyway, last week the Pentagon admitted there are now U.S. forces on the ground in Yemen. Here to explain more is senior foreign policy expert John F. O'Donnell. So, John.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Hey, Lee.
Welcome, John.
How are we? How are we?
So, John, why does the general public barely even know that the U.S. is in Yemen?
I don't know. Choke sex? Too much choke sex going on? NBA playoffs? Cheese? This whole cheese situation?
We are distracted by our love of cheese. I will give you that. I will give you that.
Well, Lee, lucky for you, I'm lactose intolerant, so I know all about Yemen.
Enlighten us.
Well, in late 2014, the Saudi Arabian-backed Yemeni government was overthrown by the Houthi rebels after their demands for a more representative form of government were denied. This freaked out Saudi Arabia, who since March of 2015 has harnessed 9 Arab countries to brutally bomb Yemen with no regard for civilian casualties, according to the UN.
How have we not...
There is more! Things got so hairy that the U.S. pulled out its special forces that were there fighting al-Qaeda, who also happen to currently be fighting against both the Houthis and the displaced Yemeni government forces, while simultaneously acquiring massive amounts of territory. Also, there's some ISIS in there, man. Also, there's some Iran. And we're back in, baby! JK. We've been there the whole time, baby!
Holy this sounds intractably
yeah, just like how my GI tract becomes after I eat Gouda. Oh.
It's revolting. All right, so how's the U.S. been involved in this the whole time? Tell me.
Lee, it's really not all that military-industrial complex. We've been selling them weapons the whole time, baby! Military-industrial complex. Been saving that one for a long time.
You're a god among men, John.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Truth is, in the past year alone, the United States has sold over $33 billion worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia and their Gulf allies. We're talking fighter jets, Hellfire missiles, air-to-surface munitions, laser-guided bombs, bunker busters, and even cluster bombs. This is some World of Warcraft boss-level cheddar, son!
Stop. Please stop with the cheese references, all right? Aren't cluster bombs banned by international treaty? What?
Aha! They are, but the U.S. and Saudi Arabia never signed the treaty. Aha!
Way to plan ahead, America.
Smart.
Thinking it out.
See the future.
And maybe we should stop arming the Middle East to the teeth. I mean, this could have been a tribal conflict within Yemen, which would have been horrible, but it wouldn't have been maybe a humanitarian crisis with international war crimes.
Hey, you know how the old saying goes. One country's war crime is another country's weapon manufacturer's throbbing fantasy come true of making record profits through endless war. They all know that.
Really rolls off the tongue.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Lee, companies like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and General Dynamics are the big winners in this conflict. Also, Al-Qaeda's doing well. Amongst the chaos, they've managed to steal over $100 million by looting banks and taking control of the country's 3rd largest port. So that's something.
That's completely f***ed up. There should be an immediate arms embargo against Saudi Arabia. I mean, the real losers here are the Yemeni people and our national security, I suppose.
Yeah, well, at least you can escape into your platter of Munster, Swiss, and Gruyere. I have to think about it every day. I've got no place to go.
God damn cheese references. All right, John F. O'Donnell, everybody.
BBC International.
Auschwitz was hell. Auschwitz is hell. And to visit hell at night is very frightening. These are the original railway tracks that would have brought the Jews from Holland and also my family to Auschwitz-Birkenau. The search starts in Holland because that's where the letters of Flip Sleer were found.
Daarboven, tussen die en daarboven, daar was het.
It ignited in me a desire to try and find out who Flip Sleer was. And then I discovered that not only was Flip Sleer killed, 119 Sleer members were killed in the Second World War.
Took an incredible step last week. They overturned the conviction of a homeless man who was caught stealing a small amount of food from a grocery store. Basically, they ruled that food theft is not a crime if you're truly hungry. And the homeless guy, Roman Austriakov, was acquitted. First of all, can I just say, you can't be homeless with a name like Roman Austriakov? You gotta be like a baron in a castle and just eating your neighbor's horses because you can. Just because you can. Anyway, they let him steal food because he was hungry. Leave it to Italy to yet again be so un-American. And if they had learned from us, they would know that anything done by a homeless person in need is a worse crime than if it's done by a rich person. A rich person sitting on a bench is an upstanding member of society taking a break. A homeless person sitting on a bench is a problem that needs dealing with. All right, like you need to send the assistant manager of a nearby store out to handle this tired man who had the gall, the nerve, to give in to gravity. and that employee is usually like 25 years old. It's like, sir, only people who actually need, like this is for people who don't need somewhere to sit, okay? It's like if you had somewhere else to go, then this would be your bench. That would be fine. But this decision by Italian courts that desperate people like Sir Roman Austriakov can have what they need. The desperate people can have what they need. If we follow that, it would upend our whole society. We have all kinds of stuff that is only here for people who don't desperately need it. You know, like free food in a hotel lobby. If you wander in there and you're like, oh, thank God, I was literally starving. I was gonna die, but then they're like, get the f*** out of here. Those croissants are only for people who have had plenty to eat. Okay, we send staff over to shove more croissants down. They're in there. But you, sir, put the croissant down. Put it down. Put it down and quash back over to the other side of the track. Or bathrooms. Bathrooms, another example, you know? Only for people that don't urgently need a bathroom. If you're casually like, do you have a bathroom? They're like, oh, absolutely. Follow me, sir. But if you're like, where's the bathroom? This is the situation. They're like, absolutely not. This bathroom is for customers only. And then if you have money, you can be like, here's my f***ing wallet. Take what you want. I'm saving you from a biohazard. But if you don't have money, you're screwed. You know? It's insane. We would absolutely, like, we should reverse all of these laws. It should be that if you can only steal or live in your car or sleep on a bench if you really desperately need to. Doesn't that make logical sense? Jesus Christ would not approve of any of this. I mean, but then again, that's okay because we wouldn't approve of him either. They put a statue of him sleeping on a bench in North Carolina, and somebody called the cops on the statue. And I'm sure that was after the assistant manager was sent out to be like, sir, can you move it along? You're scaring the customers in the Radio Shack. I'm kidding. There's no customers in the Radio Shack. Moving on. Most people now understand that money in politics is at the heart of 90% of the problems in this country. But most people don't realize it's even impacting our digital lives. You know, unregulated political online spending has shot through the roof recently, projected to hit over $3 billion in 2020, as you can see from this dramatic graph showing lines going in dramatic directions. It's pretty bad. For more on this topic, let's go to Naomi Caravani for the raging controversy.
If you already think you're slowly going insane this election year, here's something that will push you even farther over the edge. Correct the Record, a pro-Hillary super PAC, is pledging to spend $1 million to push back against anti-Hillary users on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram. They've employed the deadliest class of mercenaries to promote Clinton's message: internet trolls. These soldiers don't bother with shooting or stabbing you. Instead, they use the most ruthless weapon of all, the internet, to crush your spirit. It's awful. I live on the internet. I eat my Instagram feed. I pray to the cloud. I love amateur couples porn. Hillbots aren't trolling the amateur porn, are they? They even set up a website, thankadelegate.com, which encourages supporters to tweet thank yous to superdelegates committed to Hillary. Ah, yes, what the online progressive community loves to do. Thank superdelegates, the elite voter fungus on the democratic process. While we're at it, let's thank Wall Street and irritable bowel syndrome. Correct the Record claims Hillary's supporters are often afraid to voice their thoughts because of the fear of online harassment. But what did they expect to find on the internet? Mature adults, you have to be prepared for abuse every time you log on. And I'm actually kind of into it. If, you know, Lamborghini 69 calls me a raging bitch, I'm like, well, hello, stranger. What's your name? And I don't want to trivialize online bullying, but with this super PAC, there's less correcting and more confusing going on. People now assume if anyone speaks for Hillary, they must be paid off. Some who already tweet in favor of Clinton because they genuinely support her now want to be paid. One tweeter said, "Wow, is Correct the Record paying all 13 million Hillary voters? If so, they missed one, me." And Correct the Record is blamed for just about anything that happens on the internet. Several Bernie Facebook group pages were removed from Facebook because the groups were targeted by online trolls who posted pornographic images and reported the groups to Facebook admins. Was it Correct the Record? Or some rogue trolls? Who knows? Also, they're skirting the law because they have a direct relationship with the Clinton campaign, which is supposed to be illegal for super PACs to do. But the head of it, David Brock, says,
Our communications are through free media and through the internet. What we're not doing are big advertising campaigns, and most super PACs are doing paid advertising. Correct the Record isn't. That's the distinction that allows us to work in coordination with the campaign.
That sounds legit David al-Baghdadi of the internet, except for maybe this. A Correct the Record web video aired nationally numerous times this week on network news programs. But campaign finance lawyers are not that impressed with CTR's logic. But they can get away with it because the Federal Election Commission is deadlocked and does nothing. If the Election Commission isn't keeping up with the blatant illegal internet spending this year, we have to prepare for so much more illegal propaganda to be produced during elections in the future. We won't know who's really speaking for themselves or whose information we can rely on, who's paying whom, who to trust in this crazy digital world of ours. I mean, are those amateur porn couples really couples? Or are they acting like they're soulmates? I need this to feel love. Reporting from Washington, D.C., this is Naomi Caravani, Redacted Tonight.
These are your headlines from the future. On Tuesday, you'll read, Hillary brags on Twitter that dozens of supporters unable to fit into rally at Sharper Image in Modesto. In June, friends worry Joe Biden still seems to think he's standard bearer of something. And in July, taking a page from Italy, U.S. court rules Goldman Sachs banker not guilty of fraud because he really needed $170 million. That's our show. We tape live here in Washington, D.C. We also have shows coming up in New York City. For ticketing details, email redactedtonight@rtamerica.tv. If you want to find out about all of our videos, just text the word redacted to 444-999. It's free and easy. Plus, you can watch all our videos at youtube.com/redactedtonight. Good night, and keep fighting!
Grain, sugar, oil. Most of our meal essentials are produced by Cargill Corporation. Investigators tried to find out details about the privately owned food giant.
Entendeu? Então, por causa disso, eu não quero aparecer como responsável.
As I've said, Mr. Benefield would be the one to talk to you, and he's not available.
Eu estou bastante confortável. Eu senti o pedido. Senhor, você estava de acordo?
It took 8 months to set up an interview.
So, Mike and Stinka and Mike and...
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Questions to Cargill will be from all over the world.
I apologize that it took so long. We want to be helpful and we want to be transparent.
What will be the answers?
Global economy has already crashed, but it's being kept artificially stimulated by central banks pumping in lots of this, cheap money, right? So they go, oh, there might be a revolution in China. Let's print more free money. Oh, there might be a revolution in Europe. ECB should print more money. Oh, there might be a revolution in America. The Federal Reserve should print more money. Oh, let's just print more money. So what happens to the economy? It becomes completely invalid because there's no genuine price discovery, which means there's no moral, there's no ethics, there's no basis of a communal good, and it's anarchy, and it's violent, and you see the violence everywhere, funded by cheap money.
Fresh labor reform protests turned violent in the French city of Rennes. Thousands rally in Rio de Janeiro denouncing Brazil's new interim president just days after the previous head of state was impeached. And a Turkish MP leaks classified documents claiming the government ignored police data on nearly 1,000 Islamic State terrorists active in Turkey. And broadcasting live direct from our studios in Moscow, this is RT International. I'm Sean Thomas. Glad to have you with us. Now, police tear-gassed crowds in the French city of Rennes during protests against the government's plans to reform labor laws. And these are the latest pictures from Rennes, where hundreds gathered to show their anger over government policies. Unrest escalated after President Hollande pushed for business-friendly changes to the country's employment laws. The city's mayor has urged people to stay at home over fears of more violent clashes between riot police and demonstrators. Now, earlier we discussed the situation with RT's Anna Branova, who is in Paris for us.
Indeed, the police has now effectively cordoned off these crowds of youth in central Rennes, and they're using tear gas. This is a very common procedure for French police to use tear gas to disperse crowds, especially when things concern unsanctioned gatherings, and this manifestation was unsanctioned. As we speak, people in Toulouse, young people in Toulouse, have occupied the musical store Fnac. It's a large store selling musical and video content. They're essentially inside saying that they won't leave, and it's their way to protest against this labor law. Of course, what's happening in Rennes is coming off the back of last night's events, when at least 200 youths clashed with police, resulting in violence and a lot of vandalism as well. All of this is part of the movement in France against the labor law that is incredibly unpopular with the French public, and it's been pushed through by Hollande's socialist government, with Prime Minister Manuel Valls even trying to bypass Parliament, using his political superpower. It's possible here in France. More protests are scheduled for later next week, on the 17th and on the 19th. We're going to see quite numerous protests akin to what has happened in Paris 2 days ago, when thousands of people took to the streets.
Organization against the law, which is the law on labor regulation, which is very unpopular. So to a certain extent, I don't exclude the government is using violence as a pretext to force its policies.
In Brazil, thousands rallied in Rio de Janeiro demanding that interim President Michel Temer step down. Demonstrators denounced the new government and expressed their frustration with the suspension of Dilma Rousseff. She's being investigated over allegations she broke the country's budget laws during her campaign in 2014. Rousseff, who was the country's first female leader, calls the interim government illegitimate.
What we have today in Brazil is a temporary government and a president elected by 54 million people. Therefore, the temporary government is illegitimate from the point of view of the people's votes. We will fight to come back.
RT's Nicholas Sanchez O'Donovan has more on the protests and the figure of Michel Temer.
It was not the only protester against Temer and his all-white, all-male cabinet, and it definitely won't be the last one.